Oh, there's Teresa.
Perfect.
Hi, Teresa.
Great. And away we go. So, good evening, everyone. This is the February 4th Policy Committee meeting for MSAD11. If you don't mind, we'll go around and do introductions. My name is Tony Mead. I am the chair of policy. And let's see, I guess Cullen, you're next to me on the screen.
Sure. Nice to meet everybody. My name is Cullen McGough. This is my very first meeting as part of the school board, so please be gentle. I live over here on School Street, right on the east side of town. And just a pleasure to meet you all. I'm sorry I can't be in person, and I will bring cookies, or better, the first time we get together in person. If you didn't get a chance to see my bio, I also work for Chewonki. I'm the director of communications for them.
Thank you. Alyssa?
Sure. Good afternoon. Alyssa Tracy, a member of the policy committee. Thanks, Tony.
Teresa? I think you're muted.
Sorry, I'm not on my laptop, so it's a little getting used to. Hi, I'm Teresa Garat. I live in Pittston. And this is my first year on the school board.
Awesome, thank you. Matthew?
Yeah, my name is Matthew Marshall. I live in the Marston Road. I'm in Gardner. And this is my last year of my first term on the board, and I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Awesome. Then I guess we'll do we're doing introductions like a board meeting, but I just want to make sure we did that for Cullen as well. I guess administration.
Well, yeah, Pat Hopkins, superintendent. And then with us is Terry McGuire, our director of technology, who is behind the scenes running the Google Meet, live streaming it for us. So, and just so you know, Tony, I'm struggling to hear you a little bit.
Oh, thanks for the heads up.
Okay. Yeah.
A connection thing, or should I be closer to the mic?
Maybe closer to the mic. I just can't hear you very well. So you may be too far from the mic. Okay,
I just leaned in, so maybe that'll be better.
Yeah, that's a bit better. Thank you.
Sure, thanks. So that was our call to order and introductions, of course. As we head into the, reviewing the policies, Pat, is there anything you want to preface us with?
Yeah, I would just say, especially for new policy committee members, I will get to you a spreadsheet that we created a number of years ago. I meant to do it and it fell off my radar, but I will have that sent to you. And it lists all of the policies that we have throughout in the district. And that's what we use to guide our work. What we try to do is review every policy every 5 years to determine whether changes are necessary or not. So tonight, you will finish reviewing the policies that are, I believe, 6 years old. We have a couple of years there where we didn't get through them all. And then we're moving into the policies that are now 5 years old. So we're actually doing very, very well. Really, proud and appreciative of the work that the board has done to stay on top of this. This is a type of work that can just fall to the background, right? And people don't necessarily update their policies. So the fact that we're regularly reviewing it is great. How we do that is we are members of the Maine School Management, Maine School Board Association, and they employ staff who are responsible for keeping up on changes in the law, and in requirements for board policies. So part of my review process is to take a look at the existing policy that the board has adopted in past years. I will then seek out the current policy that's provided by Maine School Management and do a side-by-side comparison. And either I will integrate the changes into the policy, which you will see tonight. You will see that some policies have sections crossed out. You have sections that are added. Or sometimes the changes are so significant that it's just easier to adopt a new policy versus continuing with ours. Okay. So you will see that as well this evening, where we'll have a policy that is just a MSMA version. Okay, does that help? Okay, so what you see in front of you is, again, a variety of policies that they're just in the cycle for us to begin the review process. So the first policy is BIA, which is new board member orientation. So Cullen, this will be very fresh for you, considering you just had your orientation last week, I believe it was. Okay. And so as a result of that, I actually made a modification. So as you go through and you look at this policy, one, I eliminated many of the MSAD11. It's just redundant. We don't need to be saying it that many times. I think I got happy with that a few years ago and I added them in. I don't know what I was thinking, but I overdid it. But as you look in section B is crossed out. It should not be. Okay, I'm not sure how that happened. But what I tried to do is I really looked at section B and I said, you know what, we're not handing hard copies of policies any longer to board members. We just don't do that. It's all online. It's all available on their website. So we no longer do that. So we make sure that they know how to access them. And I know, Cullen, you and I had a conversation about that. Also, student handbooks. They're available under each building's site. So if you go to our website, you go to a specific building like the high school, the middle school, that's where you'll find their student handbooks. And then beyond that, we will just make available appropriate publications as they're relevant to committee members. So for example, like I just said, we have a spreadsheet that will be distributed to all committee members from this committee so that you can see what the policies are. If you're on negotiations committee, you're going to receive a copy of all the contracts. Now that is also available for any board member who wishes to have it, but we just don't automatically make copies of all of that for every single board member. It's just a lot of paper. So that was my change. That was the change there. I think, let's see, that really, other than reducing the number of MSAD11s, that was really the only substantial change to that particular policy.
Yep. Thank you for that, Pat. Your attention to detail is, really inspiring. Good touch on the line through the B. That was just a subtle little thing, but nice catch there. And I really appreciate how you, both the spreadsheet, but also how you go through and kind of compare the MSA, the Maine School Management documents and our documents. I had one correction and a couple things I wanted to bring up on this. On paragraph A, if you can hear me, the last sentence of paragraph A, I'm going to read the last clause there. The status of the future member remains that of a private citizen and not that of an elected or appointment official. And I wonder if that should say elected or appointed official, or if appointment is the right word to use there.
No, I think you're right. That is what MSMA has. I think that's an error on their part. And this has been in our policy for a while. As you can see, I'm not making a change, but I agree with you. I think it should be appointed official. So I will go in and make that change.
Cool. And I think Nancy Fortier-Brown joined us. We did introductions a few minutes ago, Nancy. And Nancy Cullen is our new board member, new policy committee member. Um, and sorry, I made the notes on my phone and just locked out. I did want to reflect. I wanted to reflect a little bit on in paragraph D of this one. Um, the use of the word boardsmanship. I just wanted to reflect that it has a gender specific language built into it. I don't know if we need to change it, if it becomes cumbersome, if we change to boardsmanship. Um, but I also didn't want to leave it sort of unspoken either. Um, and if we have other ideas, I don't know, now might be a good time to entertain them or just to be thinking about that.
I think, Tony, that probably should be a broader conversation because there are many policies that refer to boardsmanship. And that is a term that is frequently used throughout the state by MSMA and certainly know that it's used in our district. If that is a term that we want to make more gender neutral, okay, and kind of help reduce the bias, then I just think that that's probably a conversation we should place on a future agenda by itself. So then if that decision is made, then it will automatically be, policies will be adjusted to reflect that decision, if that makes sense.
Yep, it totally does. Because when are we going to go back through and get it again?
Right.
Just noticed in the reading, and I like the word, but just wanted to be mindful.
Well, let's talk about that at some point.
Cool.
There's a lot of work being done right now around the state, around the country, around equity. And so I think it is a conversation we want to engage in. I just don't want to have the conversation regarding a specific policy. So you and I can discuss with Becky how and when to go about having that discussion as a board. Okay.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
And Cullen?
Yeah, this isn't related to the text itself. This is just orientation for me. If there's someone who needs to access these documents who either has sight impairment or English as a second language and needs translation services, is there a process already in place either at the school or the state level to assist that?
I actually, with Terry here, I'm going to defer to Terry a little bit. When we decided to go with our current website designer, there was an extensive conversation with them about accessibility. And there was supposed to be the opportunity for immediate translation to different languages. Terry, is that in place?
If we put the documents in Aptigee, there is translation. But if they're in Google Docs, then they would need to use a different translator for that. As far as visually impaired, they would have to use something on their computer for help with that.
So anyone who was interested, they would need to, if they had those concerns, would need to contact you and you would assist them?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. So anything else, Colin? Your hand is still up. Nope. Okay. So anything else with BIA, or are we ready to head on to the next one?
I'm ready to head on.
Okay. All right. And I see Alyssa has a thumbs up. Okay. So the next one is BIB. This one is board member development opportunities. This right here, there were no changes when I compared it to the main school management, other than getting rid of the heavy-handed MSAD11s. So I don't have any recommended changes.
I'm okay.
Okay, any questions? I see some thumbs up. Okay,
Hey, Tony, Pat,
yeah,
I need to make about a 2-minute transition from my truck to the house. I'll be right back.
okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, then why don't we move on to BICE? And this is just the form for board members. As a reminder, all new board members, within the first 120 days of being elected, you have to complete freedom of access training. And then you're supposed to complete this document, sign it and send it back to the office. And I didn't change anything in the document. So this is the same one that we have in place already. So this is just a general review. Any questions or concerns about this one? Okay, then BID. BID, here is board member compensation and expenses. This is what you currently have as a practice. I did not recommend any changes other than I saw that you had school before boards, and I didn't feel like that was necessary. We can just delete that and we'll have it boards negotiations committee. So, is that okay? All right. Next is CEB. So we're out of the Bs. The Bs are primarily about school board. All right. Bs are all about the school board and what your policies are. C is generally about the superintendent. And this is currently your policy on the superintendent. Again, I made no changes other than to delete a couple MSAD11s. And this is what matches main school management.
Actually, I had a quick comment on this one. Just that the last sentence of the last paragraph, it says perform educational functions outside the town with the approval of the commissioner and the board. Is town a fine word to use here, or should we use city and town? I don't want to break it down too much, but I guess, does that town designation really matter?
I don't know that it really matters. If that makes you feel more comfortable to add city/town, I don't think it changes the intent, and it certainly recognizes that Gardner is a city and not a town.
Yeah, and certainly, when I think of Gardner and I mean, I'm not sure what the designation is for. Like it's the town of West Gardner, but yeah, city of Gardner. So, I mean, if it would be easy enough to do, I guess the detail there would be good.
Yeah, that's easy. Is
Town
everyone else
slash
okay
city.
with that? Okay, great. I'll make that change, Tony.
Thank you.
Any other changes? Okay,
That's it
then moving on. The next is we're in G's, and G has to do with personnel. So this particular one, GBEA, main school management is no longer recognizing this policy. Part of the reason that it's no longer recognized is that you already have a nepotism policy with the board. And so this is really a duplicate policy. It's redundant and it's not necessary. So I would recommend that you just rescind it.
Sounds good to me. Yeah, we don't need the redundancy. And actually, I was going to comment on the definition of immediate family, because I think we talk about sort of life partners in the board and the other policy.
Correct. In the nepotism policy, we expanded that. Absolutely.
No, and it's not here.
Correct.
So, yeah, I'm fine with the rescind recommendation or vote.
Is everyone else okay with that?
I'm good with it.
Okay, great. I see thumbs up. Thank you. Next is bloodborne pathogens. This one, again, pretty standard. It matches the main school management one, so I didn't make any changes. Okay, thumbs up. All right. The following one is GFC, the hiring of professional staff. So this would be administrators, administrative positions. And I did not make any changes to this policy either. So, and again, this, I did check it with MSMA and it's the same. So questions? Is everyone okay moving forward? Teresa, is that a question that you have? Your thumbs up. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, then we'll move forward. Going along with this one is the GCFB-R. And so R, Cullen, just so you know, and I don't know, Teresa, if I've made this clear before, that those are just usually procedures that attach to the other policy. So you have the general policy, then you have procedures that provide greater detail. And that's what this is. So this is really talking about some of the detail in what the administrative procedures should be when we hire principals. I did make a change here. You will see under recruitment. One of the changes that I made is now, and this is not in MSMA policy, okay? MSA policy still matches what we have, but the policy that we have does not match current practice. We are not placing advertisements in the newspaper, in the print media any longer. It is so expensive, and that's not where our staff are finding out about the position. We use a online service done through our attorneys, Drummond and Woodsum, and it's called Serving Schools. And that is where we primarily will post for most of our positions. Now, we might post in the paper or online with the KJ for like a bus driver position or a custodian position because they're not as likely to go to Serving Schools. But I changed this to say that, you know, we will appropriate on online job sites, you know, where appropriate. The other thing that we weren't doing is we're not necessarily notifying colleges and universities and the Department of Education. So I left that language in there, but I added when deemed appropriate and necessary. I think those were my only recommended changes to this policy. Yes. So questions?
I did have one, yeah, on a nice job making the policy reflect practice. Obviously, good catch, and we're leading the way here. On let's see, on G, those sort of paragraph G, section 1, which is actually on page 4 of this. So G is on the bottom of page 3, and then section 1 is top of page 4. It says notify the nominee of the board approval and employ the administrator. I just wanted to clarify what employ the administrator meant.
That would actually mean issue a contract.
Oh, okay. Like that's the
because kind of like teachers, right? There's a 3-step process. We first have to interview. And then once I interview, the 3-part process is that I have to make a nomination to the board. The board has to accept that nomination, and then I have to issue a contract. You can approve someone that I recommend, but if I don't issue a contract, they're not hired. So the same would apply here.
Yep, gotcha. Great. Yeah, just wanted to make sense. You need to employ them once approved and interviewed and then approved. Okay, yep, good.
Right. Okay. Anything else on that particular or this particular policy? Okay. Next is GCI. And this is the professional staff development opportunities. And you will see I did not make any recommended changes. Is this okay?
Actually, I had a question on D on this one. Just to, the font on the last part of D seems slightly smaller. Am I seeing that incorrectly?
No, actually, I think you are right.
Doesn't
All
change
right.
anything there.
Boy, it's subtle though. It's close. So that's a good eye, Tony.
Yeah. No, I had to like use a couple pairs of glasses to double check. And if you could refresh me for a second on where are we at? Are we using a proficiency-based system?
Yes.
That's the
Yes,
current.
we are. I mean, it looks different at different levels, but yes, we are.
Yeah. Well, those are my only two on this one.
Okay, anyone else?
We want to
Okay.
take out the MSAD11, Pat, or are you leaving those in because there's only two?
I thought because it was only two, I might as well just
Yeah.
leave it in.
No, that's fine.
It- Yeah.
Splitting
It
hairs
wasn't
at
as
this point.
yeah, and it
Yeah.
wasn't as obnoxious as some of the others. So
Sure. Yep, that's fine.
professional staff assignment and transfers. Yeah, no changes here either. And yes, I left in two of the MSAD11. Again, it didn't look too obnoxious just to have the two. But I don't have any other changes. Tony, anything that you caught?
No.
Okay. Is everyone all set with that one? Okay. The next one, resignation of school district employees. Now this one, I did delete one of the MSAD's 11s, but that's because it was just a short paragraph. Any questions or concerns with this? Okay. Then moving on to IHBEA. Here is an example where I am going to put forth the main school management version for this policy. Question, did we include both policies? No, we just included the main school management. Our policy was very, very limited. And so let me see here. I'm going to just pause for a moment. I want to make sure that this is indeed the policy that it should be. We had so many policies going back and forth.
I bet.
Yeah, that sometimes it just gets confusing. And some of the policy work that I did this year, I had to do from away. I did it, yeah, away. And so it was hard. I wasn't necessarily here in the office. So I just want to double check. Yes, this is indeed, thank you for your patience. This is indeed the main school management version. It is far more extensive than the policy that we had in place. So given that it was more thorough, our ELL program has definitely expanded. I think since the last time you reviewed this particular policy. So I just feel it's appropriate to make the switch. Any concerns with this policy?
I'll play second fiddle to Tony and point out the first sentence of the second paragraph also jumps in font size. Since we're doing fonts today.
Can you point to me where?
Paragraph. Yep, halfway through the word responsible.
Halfway through the word responsible. Huh.
If you select it, with a cursor, you'll see where the line height deviates. It continues all the way to the end of the word students.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I will take a look at that. I can't see it on my screen, so I will bring up the original and take a look at that. So thank you. Okay, anything else?
If this is the MSMA, I'm, fine with it and your assessment. Review of instructional program and parent rights. I wanted to be thoughtful about parent rights versus parent educational rights. Like, I guess in my mind, just clarifying, we're not talking about telling them about their rights as a parent, but as a parent of a student. Is that?
Correct. We're talking about our program because it's under specifically English language learners programs. We're talking about the rights for their children.
Yeah. About the instructional program and associated parents' rights. Let's not mess with it. My only distinction there was that parent rights come out as a thing that's like we're talking about a more specific version of parents' rights related to this program. I'm fine where it is with the after the and there, but I just wanted to reflect on it.
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay. All right. Is everyone else okay? All right, great. Thank you. All right, the next one. Well, this is timely, right? To look at infectious diseases. So Maine School Management, they have made some changes. This policy reflects those changes. Because of the scope of the changes, I shared this policy with our lead nurse, Kristen Martin, to get her nod of approval before I put it in this packet and brought it to you. Questions or concerns?
No, I would just ask Pat, clarifying, you said superintendent, school nurse, and that could be any nurse you designate, obviously, if you need to make a notification. We don't have to say lead nurse because that's a new thing too, really, right?
The lead nurse we created this year because of COVID. Now we may want to keep a lead nurse moving forward now that we have so many nurses. But this is going to be something that is done building based, most likely. So it would probably be the building nurse. So I'm comfortable keeping it at school nurse.
Yep. Okay. Makes sense.
Pat, the fourth paragraph, 1, 2, 3, 4. Given COVID, I think the word shall be excluded might put us in opposition to what the district actually does, because remote learning certainly does fall within school activities. But if someone's quarantined at home, they could still be keeping up with their remote schoolwork.
I see what you're saying.
Okay.
You're saying physically excluded, but not necessarily if they're home. Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
So
yeah, like in the sense of their home. Yeah.
So why don't I add something in here excluded from in person?
There you go. That's the better word.
Okay.
Yeah. And it comes up below the other stricken paragraph too, right, Cullen? Students who have other, same thing, from school and school activities.
Honestly, you could switch shall be to maybe, but that opens up another can of worms about who makes the call, and that may leave Pat in a bad spot.
Right. It really needs to be shall be. Based upon the law, it needs to be shall, not may. And it does, you're right. It absolutely opens up the opportunity for debate when we can't have that. But there needs to be a distinction now that we have the ability to provide instruction remotely. We are talking about in-person learning. So I will make an adjustment in both of those places. We'll review, adjust that to reflect this recommendation. So that's a great catch. Thank you. All right. I'll work with Kristen on that one. Anything else with this particular policy? Okay, then we're getting near the end of our regular policies. We have KLG, which is relations with law enforcement authorities. I don't have any changes other than, again, not being so heavy-handed with MSAD11 school board. But there are no other changes that are recommended. Are you all set with that? Okay. Then next is the corresponding administrative procedures that go along with it, KLG-R. And again, there were no changes recommended by main school management. So are we set with that one? Okay, great. Then the last two regular policies would be relations with school resource officers and law enforcement authorities. It's KLGA. Again, I don't recall having any changes. The only thing I did is I actually updated some cross references. I felt that was a little weak and added cross references there.
Do we have to be distinct about, like, folks that are on the other side of the river that don't use Gardner Police Department? Or do we just leave it this way? Like Pittston and Randolph would have to call county, right?
No, if we're dealing with a student issue, our SRO is able to go over to Randolph or to Pittston. Now, if it happens on the weekend, then the Gardner Police Department will absolutely call the Sheriff's Department or the state police and have them involved. But we've had a situation over in one of the area towns in which we have had both people present at the same time. So I think the language here is acceptable.
That makes sense. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And if we're okay with that one, then here is the administrative procedure is the last one. The only thing I changed here, you'll see a couple times where I made little changes around, and this is a recommendation from main school management, adding school board policy versus just school rules. I mean, we do have policies in place, so we want to make sure that it's clear that those policies are there. Rather than just police, you know, we refer to them as law enforcement now. So kind of updating the terminology to reflect current language. But I think those are the only really big changes. Page 3. There are some changes down on page 3 that really clear up and clarify that a student may be removed from school by an SRO or other law enforcement if there's a court order or an arrest warrant. You know, we have a great working relationships with our SROs since we have 2 in the buildings, and we work very collaboratively. The last thing we want to ever do is to have students arrested while in school. We try to avoid that absolutely as much as possible, and they really respect our wishes. So. Anything on this one? Okay, then if there's nothing there, then that brings us to the last one, which is the biggest. Hopefully you had a chance to take a look at this. So for newer board members, I lose track of time. I have no idea. But we engaged in a federal grant. It was a 5-year grant where we received lots of resources, supports to develop a comprehensive teacher evaluation tool and a leader evaluation tool. And it was based on the national standards for teachers and the national standards for administrators. We learned that it was a great tool for a school system like Chicago, maybe, but it was probably overbuilt for our districts and lots of main districts. We just don't have the capacity to do all that it wanted us to do. Around this time, there was a change in the law that required that school districts use student learning objectives as part of the evaluation process. Well, that's now changed. Student learning objectives are now optional. The law in Maine has changed considerably since we first adopted our evaluation tool. And so it has resulted in us having to go back and work with our Teachers Association to make changes to both our teacher evaluation tool and our administrator evaluation tool. So those of you who've been on the board, you may remember that last fall, I think it was, I brought to you the updated teacher evaluation document. And the board approved that document since it is officially policy. It has taken us longer because of COVID and everything else going on to finalize and finish the administrator's evaluation process. These have all been developed and reviewed in conjunction with staff. We are required to have a committee, and that half of that committee needs to be made up of staff, and the other committee has to be made up by administration, and that is dictated by law. So when we began this process, we pulled that committee together. We spent a lot of time analyzing all of our evaluation tools, and we've come to this. Over the last few months, I've been the one to update the leadership handbook, and it has been reviewed now by administrators, and it has been reviewed by the association. So I just want to make sure that you're aware that there has been a extensive review process. The biggest changes in this proposed evaluation document, there are a couple a few major changes. One, our evaluation cycle for administrators, it was done every single year. And again, that's where we get back to capacity. You know, we have teachers on a 3-year cycle. So to think that we're evaluating our administrators far more frequently than our staff just didn't seem to make sense. So what we did here is we developed another 3-year cycle so that they would coincide with what teachers were doing. And then we kind of spread out what the responsibilities are. So if you are a seasoned or veteran administrator to the school district, you have 3 years, and you can see where there are different types of observations that are done, where if you're in your first year of a formal, there's an observation where I will observe them providing PD to their staff, reviewing some data, or I will sit in and watch them, maybe through video, conduct a post-conference. So after they've evaluated a teacher, they sit down, they talk about what they saw. I will watch them go through that process. Then there's lots of evidence that they have to provide. There's goal development in year 2, both professional and building-based. There is a leadership 360 survey that's given in year 2, and that is a survey that goes out to their staff, and their staff is able to give them some feedback. And then there's also peer collaboration. We find it's really beneficial to have peers working together at various levels. You know, they might do a classroom observation together and then calibrate afterwards, or you might have a peer watch a PD presentation and give them some feedback. So that's new. That has been expanded, and so we're kind of excited about that. We also, if you're a probationary administrator, a couple things. One, for administrators who were probationary, initially they only had to do Leadership 360 survey once. Whereas we thought it's really important to get the survey each year of their probationary year. So we've expanded that to be year 1, year 2. We've tried to take a lot of things off their plate, a lot of the goal development, et cetera, so that they can really focus on their job as a probationary person. And then we added a section, year 3. And in year 3, we've left it that if a probationary administrator is developing, we have a choice. Can either move them to year 1 of a multi-year evaluation process, or if we're really not certain whether it's a good fit, we can offer a 3rd year of probation to give the person another opportunity to really work on their practice before we give them a continuing contract. If they are effective or distinguished, then they would immediately move up to year 3 of the 3-year process, which would be an informal year, and then they would begin their 3-year evaluation process. I think those are really the biggest changes that impact administrators. Yeah, I think that's it. Questions?
When
I will say it was a lot of work.
I was going to say, it does. It seems very much so. And it seems like when I read, and this is me not knowing because I'm not an educator, so I just asked the question to be succinct. So when you have the formal one, seems like that's a written document or something that you might have on their file, and the others that are informal are more for their own benefit, really? Is that accurate? Or how would you, what is the distinction there, I guess?
No, the informal things are still going to be in writing.
Okay.
But it doesn't have to be as formalized, okay?
Got
And you're
you.
not
Okay.
necessarily giving them a rating for it.
Okay.
You're giving
Yeah.
them some feedback, but you may not be scoring that feedback.
Okay. So it's a little more objective. Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. Okay. Thank you. Well
You're
done. I think
welcome.
that's a good process to get them in line, like you mentioned with the educators. That makes sense to me. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Others?
No, I think it looks like a good update, and I like how it sort of streamlines, where they go back into the 3rd year piece. If they're proficient or distinguished, or effective or distinguished. Sorry. I did want to double check for administrators. I know that the teacher probationary period had changed. Has that changed for administrators?
The law isn't really clear on that. I think there's more discretion given to school boards as to whether you even give a probationary period or not. There are administrators that from the moment they're hired, they're given like 3-year contracts, right? Which is not something that you do for teachers. That is not a practice that we've had here. Our practice has been to give a 2-year probationary period, very similar to teachers. Now, the law does say that if you have an administrator that you don't plan to bring back, that there is a certain timeline in which you need to notify them. And the law does distinguish between an administrator who's been in a district for 2 years or less and an administrator who's been in a district for 2 years or more. Okay, so that will still have to apply even if internally we decide to give them a 3rd year of a 1-year contract.
Thank you for that detail.
You're welcome. Something I have to pay very close attention to. Yeah. I'm keeping an eye on the time. It's 5:24. We're going to have to transition soon to the full board meeting. So any final questions on this? If not, then I would ask that Tony, we have someone make a motion to recommend all of the policies that we've reviewed tonight, recommend taking them to the board for a first reading at next month's meeting, regular board meeting.
All right.
Motion to recommend all the policies we reviewed tonight, we take to the board for a first read.
Thank you, Matthew. Could I have a second, please?
Sure, I'll second.
For a second. All right. Any further discussion on this bundle for a first reading? All right. Seeing none, we'll take the vote. Actually, Pat, do you want to call that, or?
I think for this, we're so small, if people can just raise their hand, that would be awesome.
All in favor?
Okay, great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone. Meeting adjourned. And see you in a few minutes.
We will see you shortly. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Terry.